Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up, I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes this day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like the fade, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now, if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm spelling the what it's worth. Those lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? I need your help. Before we even get started, I need your help. And I'm using my webcam this time. I am not liking the picture that my iPhone's giving me. Let me show you. Here's the difference. I mean, I guess it's kind of close, but I don't know. I like the grays, and I'm not good with the cools and the warms. I just like the way this looks. Speaking of warm, I am in my favorite wool sweater because we got 20 inches of snow over the past couple days. Do not keep me lonely in comments. If you're wondering what this little... It's my little Statue of Liberty. Sorry that... Let me put her on a little stand so that it's just not this weird, mysterious flame coming off the corner there. If I can get her. There we go. The flame goes on and off. This is an antique. So today we're going to be talking about the district court decision. And thank you. Thank you for saying I have a nice llama. This could be the beginning of a wonderful relationship. Nice llama, baby. And I did remember my new graphics. They're not so great. I've got to switch them around a little. I don't like the way they look on the screen. But anyway, let's do those first, and then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about, if that makes sense. I thought I loaded them up. Is this it? No, that's not it. Did I not load them up? That would be crazy if I didn't load them up on this screen. Well, let me try. Let me try right now. To do so, it is support. So there we go. So please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. I don't like the extra pink space. That's what I need to change. And you can follow me on Twitter at Karen Ann Harlos. Also, last but not least, and certainly last but not least, super chat, super thanks always matter, but you can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. But I also have channel subscriptions now, and the same extra content and video content and sneak previews that go on Patreon also go on my YouTube channel subscription. So if that is something you would prefer to do and you want to be number one and get a shout out, let's do it. Okay, so what we are talking about right now is the decision that came down in the District Court of Colorado. This is very inside baseball, but I would think for those who are just interested in potential election shenanigans would be interested in what's going on. So what happened is that the LPCO at the 11th hour filed suit against Jenna Griswold. And in my other show, Jurassic Dictionary, I'm going to have a word for what they did, but I'm not going to give it to you now because you're going to have to watch that episode, which I'm recording tomorrow. It will come out Saturday at 10. But if you are one of my Patreons or YouTube members, you get to see it early. You know, things move very fast in the LP. And they would like to distract very rapidly that they tried to nominate an anti-libertarian candidate against their own bylaws and against the national bylaws, and tried to disenfranchise 40,000 plus libertarians in Colorado. And I understand 40,000 plus libertarians in Colorado did not actually vote for our nominee. That's not the point. If LPCO had its way, they wouldn't have even had the opportunity to. That is what disenfranchisement means. I'm sorry that I have to explain that to people who aren't quite as literate. So, there was a decision that came down. The decision surprised me and somewhat didn't surprise me. As I said, and hopefully I'll stick it up on the top, but you all know me, I won't remember. You need to go watch my first show to get the full context. I don't think the complaint that LPCO did against the Secretary of State was particularly good. I thought there was a lot of stretching and overstating the case. And I have been confirmed by the district court judge. And I know some catty little bitches will say, oh, she's just siding with the state. No. You guys know when I do my legal analysis, which I do quite a bit of on the station because it's a mixture of various skill sets, I'm going to be fair about what the law says. That doesn't mean I like the law. And I will tell you, frankly, places where I do not like the law. But I like to call strikes and balls where they occur and not just where I like them. That's where you know you have a mindless fanatic ideologue that does that. And I will not do that. So where I was very vindicated by the district court is that the district court noted that the one thing I really harped on in my show was the burden of proof that was in the law of knowingly doing something. Not negligently, not stupidly, but knowingly. Do I think Jenna Griswold is smart? No. I think she's smarter than AOC, but that's a very low bar. She might be smarter than Kamala Harris, but again, we are talking a very low bar, but I'm not even positive of that one. She's barely smarter than a bag of rocks, in my opinion. But that doesn't mean she knowingly committed a felony, and that is the standard. So let's go through this court order It is multiple pages. We're not going to read all of it. And I don't know if it's just me, but I think she did it in 11-point font. It just seems super tiny to me. But we're gonna hit the highlights. So let me pull it out. And one thing I want to remind everyone is I am not an attorney. I'm not a licensed paraprofessional in the state of Colorado either. Those are only for divorce law. Something you would think their attorney would have known before they represented that I was to the court. Attorney has a bad habit of overstating his case, and one day he's going to get smacked down pretty hard for that. But when I see who filed the complaint, the original complaint, I begin to understand a little bit more why they're not so greatly written. I don't think they're written by the attorney. I think they're actually written by Mr. Wiley, and the attorney signs off on them. But that's just a guess. For all I know, he's writing them. I do know that in Mr. Wiley's latest press release, he couldn't even spell his boss's name right, which is, I mean, I'm the worst speller in the world, but press releases is a bit different than misspelling everything in a tweet the way I do. Their attorney is not Gary Felder. It is Gary Fielder. Okay, so let's look at this order. I was prepared to be very mad at this order, and the judge is, I know a lot of people don't like this judge. I don't know much about her. Candace with a K, C. Gertis. So, goes through the blah, blah, blah. They had a hearing, they talked, they argued, whatever. And it says this was an election action. Now, one thing I am not by any means, I'm not an expert on any kind of law. As I said, I'm not an attorney, but I never practiced in election law. So I'm learning as we go. So she says this election action was filed on November 1st. And they seek relief based upon the disclosure of BIOS passwords on the Colorado Secretary of State's website. And this is an important sentence. It is indisputed that the relief sought by petitioners is both extraordinary and unprecedented. So that means there's a very high bar. And Damien, if you have not hit subscribe, please do. Okay. And it lists the relief that they wanted. I'm not going to read all of it again because I did that on the last show. So respondents, and that would be the Attorney General and the Secretary of State, argue that the requested relief should be denied on 3 bases. And this is really interesting. And this is where LPCO's attorney screwed up, because they have a point here. Number 1, the action is improperly brought under Colorado Revised Statute, blah, blah, blah. Now, would I have known that? No. But should an attorney have known that? Yes. Number 2, a request to invalidate a rule, which is something they were requesting, may only be brought under the Colorado Administrative Procedures Act. I know we're getting into red tape here. Do I hate all that? Yes. We're not dealing here with what I hate. What we're dealing here is with reality. Would I have known this had to be brought under the Administrative Procedures Act rather than just as a typical action? No. But I can tell you in my first hearing, when I was in a case against the LPCO's attorney was lauded by the first judge, because we changed judge midstream, as an election law expert or very good in election law, something like that. Obviously not that good if he didn't know that it needed to be brought under the Colorado Administrative Procedures Act. I'll be honest with you, I didn't even know such a thing existed until I read this. But when I went and looked at it, I'm like, the Secretary of State is right here. Number 3, if standing is found, petitioners are unable to satisfy their burden of proof. And we'll look at the statute they cite for that. Okay. Apparently, there was a proposed intervener. Ooh, the plot thickens. David Justice. You want to know what? I'm going to need to go down to the courthouse next week, or if any of you who are listening have access to CSEF. CSEF is short for what's it short for again? Colorado Courts Electronic Filing. I would love to read this. Intervener filed an emergency motion to intervene on November 4th. I would love to read and go over with you this motion to intervene, because like when all these players get in there, I'm just like, this is getting exciting. This is turning into a party. But the motion to intervene was denied. I want to read it though. I do, in fact, want to read this motion to intervene. So, at the conclusion of the November 4th, 2024 evidentiary hearing, and I've been through an evidentiary hearing now, petitioners asked the court to find that the Secretary of State knowingly caused published passwords in violation of Colorado statute, blah, blah, blah. And petitioners pointed out that the Secretary of State handled this situation differently than a 2021 Mesa County, Colorado event. That is just simply, it's true but not true. You know that expression that something isn't even false? Oh, what I wanted to ask you guys is Wayne had told me that my volume is not so great. Now I'm looking at my audio indicators and it's pinging in the yellow. Please let me know in chat if my audio is decent. Otherwise, we'll go back to using the Yeti. But the Yeti is so big and phallic, it's the only word I can think of, that it just mildly disturbed me every show. It was like I just really did not want a big penis in front of my face. Okay, Chuck, so I think this little petite little microphone suits me better. So I'm glad that you said that. So, no, I don't think Tina Peters should be in jail. I think Tina Peters of Mesa County should be released now. But it is not the case that the Secretary of State handled things completely differently. Tina Peters did knowingly do what she did. Do I think she was right? Yes. But when you're going to be disobedient to the government, who is a cruel master, you have to count the cost and know that you could get in trouble. It's the same thing in any group that you may be in. Some people may know, I believe I've done absolutely nothing wrong, but, you know, my hanging is scheduled for Saturday, that when you do something that angers the wrong people, you have to count the cost and you have to be prepared. Now, I think Tina Peters was absolutely crucified and should be let out this very second. But it is not exactly true that these two circumstances are identical. No matter how much libertarian talking points would like that to be true, it's not true. Tina Peters set out and did something deliberate. I think what she exposed was important, just like what Snowden did was deliberate, but I think what he did was important. It's not the same thing as happened here. What happened here was negligence. Whether it rises to gross negligence, which some people will get that reference by me adding the word gross, is another matter. But she did not knowingly do this. So let's continue. Petitioners asked the court to order the Secretary of State's office not to interact with the counties in Colorado and require a hand count ballot cast in their county. I know what I'm going to say right now is going to be very unpopular with some libertarians. And I also think there's a lot of hypocrisy with some libertarians. I hear a certain faction of libertarians going on and on and on about how we have to have electronic voting at our conventions. And, the hand counting is too slow and all of this. But these same libertarians will turn around and insist we have to hand count ballots and something that is of a massively larger scale. Now, I think we need very, very, very robust security measures in place. But I am not a big fan of hand counting. I'm sorry, I don't think that is the holy grail of election integrity. Yes, that makes me a heretic on another subject. So they're saying that they wanted each county to hand count their ballots. The respondents, meaning the Secretary of State, acknowledged that the mistake of the BIOS passwords being available on the Secretary of State's website was serious. Well, she should resign. Respondents, they go on with the Mesa County thing. We're not going to go into that. So here are some of the findings of facts. Really aren't important. Everyone agrees LPCO is a political party. They agree with the Secretary of State is. They agree when the Secretary of State learned that there was an Excel spreadsheet. I wanted to know that in my last show, and I didn't know. She didn't learn about it until October 24th. However, the Excel spreadsheets had been on the website since June 21st, but she didn't know about it back in June. She didn't know about it until October 24th. So, of course, an investigation does need to be launched. How did she not know? We know that foreign governments are constantly scanning our government websites for inadvertently posted sensitive information. Why aren't we scanning our own websites for these sorts of things? So that is something that definitely needs to be answered in an investigation. Once Griswold found out about it, the subject worksheet was removed. 600 voting system components were identified. And then she started identifying the counties that might be affected. Now, here's another thing that I really want the answer to. The Secretary of State... I think I know why now. I think I just answered my question. On or about October 29th, so picture this. On October 24th, Jenna Griswold was like, oh shit, this was on our website. And she was probably going, damn, I hope nobody found out about this. Let's just remove it and hope that we dodged a bullet here. Then on October 29th, they received a communication from the Colorado GOP letting her know they knew. And as that was the oh no moment for Jenna Griswold. And then 2 days later, the Deputy Secretary of State adopted temporary election rules, allowing the passwords to be changed. Okay, remediation efforts were taken to change the BIOS passwords, review the configuration, and running checks in the affected counties' operating systems, and a review of the access laws. Now, here's the next part that's important. And I know people on both sides are going, this isn't enough. Okay, we're just going to state fact here. And thank you, Dean Davison. The Secretary of State currently utilizes several layers of election security, including key cards. Well, I'm not too impressed by key cards. 24-hour video surveillance system of equipment rooms and drop boxes. I wonder if anyone has reviewed those. Lock-in accuracy tests. Tamper-resistant seals on equipment and access logs. But remember, petitioners allege that the access logs could have been altered by anyone with access to these passwords. However, the Secretary of State utilizes a 2-passcode system. Specifically, the Secretary of State has sole possession of the BIOS passwords. That is what was on that Excel spreadsheet. And each county administrator has sole possession of a separate password. It is my understanding that both are needed. And they're kept separate. If that is true, this was definitely a serious error that will require protocols to make sure this doesn't happen again. But in the findings of fact of the court, to access the voting system, both passwords are needed. And nobody had even remotely alleged that both passwords had indeed been leaked or used improperly. That is the missing step. You know, where someone tries to make an argument and you notice they went from 1 to 4. Yeah, step 3 is kind of important. Then 18, as a general practice, paper ballots are utilized by Colorado voters. We do not use those touch screens. And then, pursuant to Colorado law, starting in 2017, after any election, each county is required to conduct a post-election audit designed to confirm the results between the paper ballots cast and the electronic voting system. So there will be an audit of each county. There's no evidence that the disclosed BIOS passwords were actually used. Of course, the petitioners say, if you have the passwords and you use them, you can erase the evidence that you use them, but that still doesn't deal with the issue that allegedly it's a 2-password system. And there was no evidence of compromised voting components, only a panic button pushed that there might have been. Now, let's get into the State Administrative Procedure Act. That sounds really exciting, shall we? And says it serves as a gap filler, and its provisions apply to agency actions unless they conflict with specific provisions of the agency statute or another statutory provision preempts it. So, courts require parties to pursue statutory remedies before seeking relief in district court through the exhaustion of remedies doctrine. You all should be really familiar with the exhaustion of remedies doctrine because we talked about that a lot during the Michigan cases. This doctrine allows an agency to correct errors on matters within its expertise. I don't have much respect for the expertise of any agency. And to compile a record adequate for judicial review. Now, that part is important. There needs to be a record for judicial review. It also serves the additional purpose of protecting against premature interference by the courts and conserving judicial resources. It is that sentence right there that tells you that LPCO is not getting attorney's fees whatsoever, at least in this district court case. They are appealing to the Supreme Court because they kind of have to, and I'll explain that to you in a moment. They have to file that tomorrow. I don't know how I'm going to get a copy of that, but I got to drive my booty down to the Colorado Supreme Court. I will do that. Okay. And then it goes on to say that the Supreme Court can decline to hear the case. But if they do hear the case, it's noted here that the Secretary of State was authorized to allow the Deputy Secretary of State to create that emergency rule. It says, if a party seeks judicial review before exhausting these administrative remedies, the court lacks subject matter jurisdiction. So it's denying it has subject matter jurisdiction, at least on any portions that touch the Administrative Procedures Act. Now, I have a feeling that Mr. Fielder was aware of this, but kind of short-circuited that step because of the 11th hour filing. Instead of just ignoring it, he should have tried to set some new case law and making an exception when there is such an emergency situation. That's just my opinion. So again, that was the order. They need to exhaust their administrative remedies. We talked about the rulemaking authority. I'm just continuing. Oh, because they argued about the Let America Vote Act. There were certain hoops they had to jump through that they haven't done yet. But they go on to where the petitioners argued that the Secretary of State violated a certain statute, which would make her guilty of a Class 5 felony. Before you accuse somebody of a felony, and I know this quite well because they accused me of a felony and tried to say I submitted fraudulent electors to the state of Colorado when I had absolutely nothing to do with submission of electors to the state of Colorado. So I'm kind of sensitive to being falsely accused of a felony. But in order for Jenna Griswold to be guilty of more than just being dumb and negligent, in order to be guilty of a Class 5 felony, she had to knowingly cause to be published. Now, I might want to send this part to Chuck. It says when you're talking about knowingly, and I think knowingly would be right there with gross. It might even be called gross malfeasance. The factors to be considered are the extent of the non-compliance in the particular issue, i.e., a court should distinguish between isolated examples of oversight and what is more properly viewed as a systematic disregard for requirements. 2, the purpose of the provision violated and whether what that purpose is substantially achieved despite the non-compliance. And 3, whether it can be reasonably inferred that the official made a good faith effort to comply, or whether the non-compliance is more properly viewed as the product of an intent to mislead the electorate. I'm going to send you this case law. That's a good footnote. Okay. Here, it's not disputed that the passwords were leaked. The question then becomes if this conduct was knowingly done. Knowingly is described as a person knowingly with respect to conduct or to a, God, this is such a, there's too many ellipses in here. She didn't knowingly do it. Let's put it that way. No witnesses testified, nor was any evidence presented that the systems were compromised. Okay, let's see here. It talks about the presumption of regularity is granted to the Secretary of State, considering her immediate action. So, the court finds this disclosure is an isolated example of oversight contrasted with a systematic disregard for requirements. The purpose of the statute is substantially achieved by issuing new passwords. It's reasonable to infer that the respondent made a good faith effort to comply with the two-step verification protocol by changing the BIOS passwords, which are the only passwords that the Secretary of State is authorized to control. Therefore, any relief required by this section has been accomplished independent of and prior to the filing of the instant case. I have a feeling they're going to get assessed fees by the Secretary of State. Stated differently, the Secretary of State substantially complied with correcting the BIOS password breach, and has verified that no affected voting systems were compromised. Thus, any order requiring the Secretary of State to substantially comply with correcting the public disclosure of BIOS passwords is unnecessary. So the petition is denied. I have some statutes that I printed out here. Oh, and here's the Help American Vote Act. It says if you have a complaint that HAVA, H-A-V-A, the Help America Vote Act, was not complied with, the Secretary may establish by rule a uniform administrative complaint procedure, and that's what they were talking about. So they didn't do the administrative complaints, but it was the 11th hour as well, and there's a 60-day window, and I really think that they should have argued in their complaint extraordinary circumstances that would cause irreparable damage to waive the 60-day requirement. They didn't do that. I think they should have, but they didn't even acknowledge this in their complaint. Okay, so that was the administrative text. And then it talks about neglect of duty, this is Colorado statutes, elections 1-1-113, neglect of duty and wrongful acts, procedures for adjudication of controversies reviewed by the Supreme Court. So they're allowed to bring it to the district court. If they don't like the district court's decision, they only have 3 days to appeal to the Colorado Supreme Court, which is why you've heard they are going to appeal to the Supreme Court by Friday, which they have to do. But it also notices that the Supreme Court of Colorado can decline to hear the case. I tend to think that's what's going to happen. So they will have spent a bunch of money for nothing, unless the attorney is donating his time. Maybe the Colorado Supreme Court will hear it. We shall see. I will get a copy of that complaint, and I will keep you guys... I have an itch. Sorry about that. I still have the COVID rash. And I'll keep you guys updated on that. I was prepared to be really, really mad about the order, but the order was not like leftist shrieking or anything like that, which is what I expected. She did provide a basis. She identified the same weaknesses in the petitioner's complaint that I identified, and I'm a nobody, so they had to be pretty obvious. I will say, as I said last time, I think this is just a publicity stunt by the LPCO to try to raise money. I had heard that earlier the chair of the LPCO was bragging about how much money they've made and all of this. Now, I don't know what blood money, what 30 pieces of silver that they're bringing in from the RFK joint fundraising agreement. I think they messed up their FEC report. I'm not sure. I don't care. I don't, whatever. All I know is under Tracer, under their state account, she's claiming they made money. They went from $40,000 to $10,000 this year. I'm not good with numbers. Math is hard. But I think $10,000 is less than $40,000. I don't think that's making money, particularly when you have to put on a convention in March or April of this year. Now, one thing I will give the LPCO credit for, but I'll give myself partial credit for that, is we don't put on these 3-day extravaganzas that cost $30,000, $40,000 the way we used to. But they aren't doing the second part. My suggestion always was, let's just do business on the cheap during the official convention time. And then later on in the year, spend more money, get good speakers, have tickets that are worth buying, and have a seminar type event. Never did the second part, but we have made the first part cheaper. But that 10 grand is going to go to convention. And they ran off a lot of the big money donors in Colorado. Whether they'll make money this convention or whether that's going to zero out their bank account, I don't know. It's been falsely stated that I want them to go bankrupt. No, I don't. I don't want the National Party to go bankrupt. I certainly don't want my state party to go bankrupt. What I do want is for their board to want the Libertarian Party to be libertarian again instead of simps for Trump. And I want those people to have money to do the work of actual libertarianism. Bankrupting the party does nothing for anybody. So I'm going to encourage anyone here who's from Colorado. I know it will gall you, but go and join. At least join. I know it's a donation, but they have two different links. But one, if you're a registered libertarian, will give you voting rights. So go to the membership link and join. No matter how much it galls you, if you want a voice, you have to have skin in the game. Even though I'm a lifetime member of the National Party, which makes me automatically a dues-paying member of Colorado, I still pay my $25 a year in dues. And so does Wayne. So, which we don't have to because we're life members. So I'm going to stick around for a couple minutes to see if there are any questions. Please yell at me when I do as fillers. I'm trying to get out of that habit. When I edit out short clips for lives, I have to edit out those It's really annoying, and it's a very bad vocal habit. And I would rather just pause and get my thoughts together rather than doing the derp. So are there further questions on anything else? I'd be glad to hear them. I doubt I will be doing a show tomorrow, but perhaps I will. During the day, I'm going to be recording the episodes of Jurassic Dictionary. If you're interested in words and history, it isn't political at all. Please go subscribe to Jurassic Dictionary. And then I have a Parliamentarian channel. Both of these two new channels only do videos 10 minutes or under. They're not long form like this one. They're not live. And it is short, quick parliamentary tips like, what does a second mean? Is there such a thing as a friendly amendment? And again, you'll learn. I learned something just writing these, and you think it's basic stuff that I should know, and I still learned something. So please go subscribe to those two channels. Mike and I will not be doing another Cultivar O&R until not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. All right, that is it. Again, I remind you, you can always shoot me a super thanks after the show is over, or let me put this back up on the screen. You can support me on Patreon at patreon.com/Pink Flame of Liberty. I really appreciate it. I cannot tell you how much I do. But I hope you have an awesome weekend if we do not get to talk before then. Mi guapas de libertad.
You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business, not because they want to